Okay, we're going to call to order the Thursday, January 27th of 2022 Airport Advisory Board regular meeting. You can call the roll.
Chair Norval.
Here.
Vice Chair Dempsey.
Here.
Member Smyser. Member Lester. Member Mitchell.
Here.
Member Starley.
Here.
Okay.
So we have a quorum.
We have a quorum. We're good. Next presentation, presentation of the new Assistant Airport Manager.
Do we have the article for the slide?
I am trying. There you go, Arvin.
Just want to introduce yourself and brief background.
Yes, my name is Arvin Weiss. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to join the team at New Smyrna Beach Airport. Just a little bit about my background. I started in aviation at a young age, started flying when I was 19. Decided that aviation was what I really enjoyed, but decided flying wasn't a career I wanted to pursue. Stayed working in both private and commercial aviation. I worked below wing with Delta and also for FBOs. Most recently, I worked for Shelter Aviation in Daytona. I spent the last 12 years there as general manager, handling and running our operation there. Very excited, like I said before, to join the team and appreciate the opportunity. And thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for our new assistant?
No.
No? All right, with that said, 2B is sea turtles make a splash at New Smyrna Beach Municipal Airport.
Yeah, this is a fun item I wanted to include. It's new to me. I hadn't seen this in my time at the airport here, but we've been able to work with this group, the Turtles Fly 2 group, to support their operations at the airport and with the local marine biologist and part of the conservation wildlife. So it's kind of a new thing. It just happened in the last couple of weeks. They've now made a second flight with a different pilot volunteering the aircraft, and a total of 14 turtles have been moved now. So it's just nice to highlight kind of an unconventional use of the aircraft in the airport, but something that's kind of near and dear to New Smyrna Beach and the opportunities we have with the warm waters.
They're not going to make us shut off the runway lights at night or the beacon or anything?
No, I don't think it's quite like living on the beach side there.
Okay. All right, item 3 is public input. We don't have much public here. Okay. We'll move on to consent agenda. Consent agenda, chair and vice chair positions. So my term expired. I got reappointed as the alternate, so I'm stepping down as chair. So that automatically makes Jim Dempsey chair. Right, Jim?
I'm not sure that's how it works, is it?
Do we have to vote on both, or are we just going to wait till?
I mean, we have a quorum if you want to press on.
Let's
Yeah.
press on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw the recommendation from the airport staff for me to take over as the chair, and I'm glad to do that. I appreciate the confidence that the airport staff is showing with that, and I'm glad to accept it if the rest of the board wants that to happen.
Okay.
Oh, you can't hear me. Okay.
Now I can.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you hear what I said? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'd like to nominate Jim to be the chair. Anybody second that, please?
I'll second it.
Okay, Amy, will you call the roll?
Chair Dempsey.
Okay.
Yes?
Yes,
Member
Norville.
Member Mitchell,
Yes.
Member Starley.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Okay, and now we need a vice chair position. Anybody have any nominations for a vice chair?
Can we hold that until we have a full board? Is that an appropriate way to go, or do we have to have a vice chair today?
I think we can wait on the vice chair.
I believe we can table, and then first order of business for the next meeting would be.
I'd like Celeste and Ms. Miser to
Yes,
have
I
an
agree.
opportunity to weigh in on that as well, if everybody's okay with that.
Yes.
Okay, so next meeting, we will pick a vice chair. Item 4B, consider the approval of Airport Advisory Board meeting minutes from July 28th of 2021. Anybody care to make a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to accept them.
I'll second.
Chair Dempsey,
Approve that.
Member Norville,
Yes?
Member Mitchell,
Yes.
Member Starley.
Yes.
Okay, item 5 is old business. 5A, I don't know what the acronym is, Adam, RSAT continued.
The Runway Safety Action Team,
RSAT.
RSAT.
the RSAT, yes.
That's the meeting with the FAA.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so similar to what was in the agenda packet, one of the feedback items that we've been given was for a wind cone to be added to service 725. Currently, if you're taking off or if you're landing on 7, you don't have a direct line of sight because of the geometry of the airport to the center wind cone. And so we have the opportunity to place the alternate wind cone probably somewhere along the side of Alpha by 725, kind of across from mosquito control, that area there. And that'll help the pilots that are lining up on 725 to make a better decision than looking far off to the center of the field. Next item was pavement markings for runway 220. There was some ambiguity in the past with where to make that turn from Echo and pilots or from Bravo. That's all been corrected now. If you guys have had a chance to go out, 220's been remarked, the intersection's been remarked. There's very clear and clean lead-in lines for both the taxiway and edge markings for the runway. So that, I believe that's going to be substantially addressed. And the unused pavement, which also led to some of the concern that they had, that's now been removed. And this past week and this week, if you've seen from the highway, there's several trucks and heavy equipment laying all the sod. So that phase of the project is going to be wrapping up here in the next probably 4 to 5 days. And that will address the current runway safety action items.
Okay.
Awesome. That's good.
Item 5B, I'm going to get this one wrong also. Ver Tower continued.
Yeah, so some of the board members may recall we've been looking at implementing some software that will allow us to track the not only air operations but also ground-based operations. One of the products that performed well for the price for our size airport was a product called Ver Tower. We began a service contract with them in October. Our antenna was installed in November, and so now we can see aircraft movement on the ground as well as in the air. So we can see who's using the fuel farm, how many times the taxiway is used, how many times the runway is used throughout the day. It's tremendous information when you have to make operational decisions for closing or rerouting traffic due to construction or 2 incidents or accidents at the airport. So we're still learning. It's somewhat new, but we have implemented it. It's performing well. One of the additional categories that the software can be used for is for determining if noise concerns, basically vetting noise concerns, looking at the frequency that aircrafts are over the adjoining neighborhoods, looking at the pattern that they're flying, and if it's within what our voluntary noise abatement program guidelines are. And I believe we've had really good results. Certainly, Epic Flight Academy has helped us tremendously with that, and we've worked with Embry-Riddle as well.
How many times have you used it since it's been turned on?
I have used it for my own almost daily to see what's going on. For noise, probably once or twice a week, pretty consistently. And a lot of it's just been trying to understand the fleet mix. With Arvin coming from his line of work in Daytona and looking at more jet versus piston aircraft, and because not only can you see what's happening in that moment, but you can go back and you can look at what jet category aircraft use your runway in the last 30 days, who they were, where they came from, those kind of things. So it just helps inform the operational picture. And certainly in the new phase that we're in, we're using it a lot. There will get to a point where we might kind of understand some of our operations better. But right now, for me especially, it's just good to see what's going on.
You said that you use it a couple times a week for noise. Is that because of phone calls or?
Yeah, it varies. So typically, I'll get a phone call or an email that there was a lot of activity over a residence. I can go in and I can look and see if the aircraft were centerline over the residence or if they were, a third of a mile away. In a lot of cases, when people describe over their house, that's anywhere that's in the horizon,
right.
Not necessarily over their house. So, that's kind of been informative. And certainly for the flight schools, they can say, oh, we were well north of the neighborhood. And then I can see, sure enough, yeah, they were tracking well north of the neighborhood. So I think it's kind of telling us what we thought in terms of, what we were hoping. But there have been a couple of times where the flight schools have looked at it quite seriously, and they've gone and looked at the information to see for themselves.
Okay.
So you said plural schools. Who is that besides Epic? Is that Embry-Riddle or the others?
So the schools that have been responsive to us so far is primarily Epic and Embry-Riddle.
Yeah, okay.
Some of the other schools, they just don't use our facility as often. Yeah. Or we just don't necessarily have a working relationship.
It's almost cyclic. I live in Inlet Shores, so it's but I've given a lot of the recent activities where aircraft come off of what is it, 229?
Yeah, 29
and then make an immediate, almost diagonal left and come right over Inlet Shores and then turn down and fly over all the houses on the west side of the river. Okay.
Yeah.
But it only happens once in a while, but it stirs up everybody, and there's an immediate email trail on our Facebook community, Inlet Shores Facebook group that we've got. But I think the current 725 and being shut down and all the activity going on and the pavement being ripped up and everything has got a lot to do with that heavy traffic on 29 putting everything going that way. So,
it does.
And those folks that are on the backside of Cunningham Drive that are looking right at the airport, they're definitely the most vocal. Okay,
Yes.
right now.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that when things settle down with the construction, that we'll get a real look then at how it's going to work and what Vertower can do for us then. It'll be interesting to see.
And the phase 2 of that project, 1129 is going to shut down for 60 days.
Yeah.
So the operational pressure will be on 220 and 725.
Yeah.
And it has been interesting when there is traffic, sometimes over inlet shores, I can go back over a 24-hour period and not one flight school aircraft was there. It was either individual flight training, it was itinerant traffic, it was airfield tenants.
Yeah.
So just understanding who's doing what at what time, and then trying to communicate to the right people, because it's easy to want to shout at, one of the businesses on the field,
Yeah.
but it's oftentimes not even from our state,
Okay.
Is this Vertower software going to generate anything that we're going to be able to see at some kind of like annually or something that, you can maybe share interesting data that you mine out of this as far as numbers of, airport operations or this or that or whatever? Do you envision being able to provide some feedback to us from that at some point?
Yes. Yeah, the goal, and I'm fortunate because with Arvin has demonstrated a good analytical side, just working with him for the past 4 weeks here. We'll be able to see how often our fuel farm is used by domestic traffic or itinerant. We'll be able to see what our most frequently traffic taxiway is, what the operation for the run. There's all kinds of statistics. What we have to keep in mind is that when we produce these reports, they become public record, and so there's a process that we have to adhere to for that.
I understand.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions on that? All right, with no other questions, we'll move to 5C, 75th Airport Birthday Celebration.
This remains a moving target in terms of how the best way to accomplish it is, and the willingness of people to attend and book events with the recent spike of COVID again. There are certainly some ideas that have emerged as more desirable, more practical, more achievable. We've amended some of our ideas for the venue to having more activity on the main apron. I still want to continue with the spectrum of aircraft representing as 75 years of flight, like we had talked about before. There is a desire to have a large air show activity, which would be likely more possible in the fall. But it remains a moving target. This whole year is the 75th year, so I think to pin ourselves down to one small date limits what we can do.
You realize what you're getting into if you talk about more of an air show type event
Well,
and the logistics of that.
Yes, and it took Rhonda a few years in the position before that size event was held, and I can appreciate why. It's a tremendous challenge to take on, especially in your first year. And I've always been a little concerned and leery about that. Just coincidentally happens to be the 75th year, and I want to honor and recognize it, but it's quite tough. And a lot of the well-established contracts and performing groups and everybody is very disjointed because they're coming out of 2 years of not doing the typical air show routine. So it's been a different mix.
Okay. I mean, even the event where you're having the static displays and so forth, my biggest concern, even though I just have one taxiway in and out of the hangar area, but when we had our events, our open hangar days, and they were monitored well by our employees, but you have a lot of people that are there that don't have their head on swivel, and it was always a nerve-wracking thing for me for something bad's going to happen one day.
Yes.
And now if you have it on a big ramp with everybody, you're going to have a lot of people watching and
Yes.
what they're doing. So,
It's an ever-present challenge trying to make aviation accessible to the public. but keep them safe at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a note from Shayna, is that right? A
Yes.
couple of weeks ago, several weeks ago, about trying to schedule another meeting to get Celeste together and us together to, catch back up again, because it got, it kind of stopped, all right? And part of that, I have to apologize, I had to go out for shoulder surgery, and I was out for 2 months literally with that, so that took me out of that October, November timeframe when the group was trying to have some meetings, and then Omicron hit, and it just kind of threw everything into the ditch. But I sent her a note about a week ago and asked what was the status of, had she gotten any feedback from anyone to have that meeting, and I think we kind of need to do that. We need to get that group moving again on a path forward, and because even if we don't do something until October, we need to be planning that now.
I know it comes up fast, and our last meeting, because of the high frequency of the virus and exposures, we canceled basically the day of because people had contact. So
Right, okay.
it's
Well, and I can understand why we're not trying to plan something for April that involves a lot of people showing up, because there's still a big deal going on right now. Still a lot of people getting sick, and government's giving away free masks, and they're doing everything there. But we do need to have a plan in place. One thing that I did want to mention is it April 22nd? Is that the actual day of the 75th anniversary of the Navy transferring the airport over to the city? And I was wondering if it's appropriate, even though we're going to have a celebration later on in the year, for there to be some type of where the mayor says something, makes a comment, proclamation, something to recognize that day of the 75th anniversary, and in that maybe talk about the airport team, the AB and the airport management team are working together with Epic and others and Gary's to put a celebration event together when it can safely and appropriately happen.
Yes.
Okay. But I think there ought to be some recognition that happens in April for the fact that it's the 75th anniversary, whether or not wherever in 2022 we actually have a celebration event.
yes.
So is that something that you would take the action to do, to communicate to, or should I do that? Or what's the best way to make that happen, to suggest, let maybe Jason and Russ know that, because Jason's the city commissioner for our district where the airport is, maybe let them know that, we want to do something. We're having to deal with the COVID thing the whole way, so it'll probably be later in the year, but April is the day. Can we do something? Can the city make some type of public thing and then talk about keep your eye open, we're going to have something later in the year?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the best way to do that?
Sounds like you guys could make a motion to ask the commission to consider that, and then it could be supported by the Airport Advisory Board, and then I could put it on the commission as an agenda item from the airport.
Okay.
I think that's how that would go.
Did you get that motion?
So,
And just to be clear, we're looking for, proclamation from the mayor of the airport's birthday, and we're looking for possibly some level of city resources dedicated
Yes.
to the
Okay.
to that.
To an event that will be held
Yeah.
later on in the year when the air is free to breathe.
So
And
I
people
can't
can gather. Yeah.
I can't make that, but that's my understanding. I'll let you guys decide that.
Okay, all right.
okay, I'll second your motion.
I made a motion?
Yeah.
Chair Dempsey,
Yes.
Member Norval,
Yes.
Member Mitchell,
Yes.
Member Starley.
Yes.
Okay. Item 5D, capital improvement projects.
We have a wide variety to discuss here. Are you Are you guys following a program that the city's using called Meister Task? It's a way for the public to track capital improvement projects.
No.
Okay, we'll make a note to supply the link.
Can you say the name of it again?
It's a program called Meister Task.
Meister Task?
Meister Task,
Okay.
or Meister, it probably depends on how you say it, but that's how I say it, Meister Task. And every 2 weeks on Tuesday morning, we have a CIP meeting and we update the status of our capital improvement. And there's a portion of that that's made available to the public so they can follow along. So the big ones to share with you guys, similar to what it says, taxiway Charlie design was completed and reimbursed. Taxiway Charlie construction phase 1 is currently occurring. We're about to make the large change next week. So we'll start the phase 2 of the construction, which is everything south of the apron. Everything so far has been north of the apron. Our wildlife hazard management plan is largely complete. It will be delivered end of January, early February, and then it will have to be adopted by the city to be formally in place.
Hey, Adam,
Yes.
speak in your mic a little.
Okay, sorry. We have our hangar Bravo and Charlie demolition project. Now I'm yelling. There we go. That's actually been completed, so if you guys have been out there, I think the pictures were included. You could see before and after. It's a significant change. And the next phase for that project is designing how that grassy sod area is going to be used as an apron. The master plan shows that being used to accommodate large aircraft in the future. So the degree to which we pave it, drain it, light it, all of those things are still being considered in the design phase.
Can you go back to that picture that showed the grassy area where the hangars were?
Yes.
So are you talking about both grassy areas eventually becoming pavement?
So the left side grassy area is a drainage swale. It
Oh,
would be
okay.
very costly to pave over that. We'd have to balance the stormwater and everything. So that's probably going to remain runoff swale
Okay.
to contain that. But the large grassy area in the middle will be designed to allow possibly 3 to 4, 5 large business class jets extended parking so that the apron isn't congested. It's very close to gate 1. It's very close to the FBO business that currently provides full service jet fuel. It's just immediately off to their north of their business. So it's a good location for that activity, but the actual depth of the pavement, the size that's going to be rehabilitated, whether or not it's going to be lit, what the utilities might be out there, that's all still in the design phase.
Okay. Okay. The buildings that were on the right side there, are they just going to remain for equipment storage and that type of stuff?
Yeah, the buildings on the right side, that's our T hangar building D, and it's still a serviceable T hangar, and we have 9 tenants in it currently.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
The backup AWAS project, it's an FAA requirement to have a second set of instruments for our weather station. That has been designed to dovetail into the system that we have currently so that they'll all talk to each other. Project's going to go out for bid. We're working with procurement in the city. We're looking in February. It may slip to March. And then our airfield guidance sign project, that's the second part of our marking update that we've done. That will be going out for bid in a similar time frame. Some of the airfield guidance signs will be refreshed as part of the Taxiway Charlie project. And then we also have the Taxiway Alpha rehabilitation design coming up in a couple years. So the signs that are in that location that are serviceable now will be refreshed during that project. So the airfield guidance sign project now is very specific to the signs which are not part of the Charlie or Alpha projects, just so we're not doubling up on, the signage.
Okay.
And then we have T Hangar H, which reached substantial completion in October. However, we were required to install a fire alarm system prior to getting the certificate of occupancy. I toured the hangars this morning. The fire alarm system passed its rough-in inspection, and they're going to do a live fire call with it. So someone's actually going to initiate one of the sensors, and then it's going to make the cellular connection, and that's how it passes its test.
Oh, okay.
And that's scheduled to occur either probably tomorrow or Monday, depending on how the contractor does, at which point it's anticipated that we get our certificate of occupancy.
So after you get the C of O, how long will it be before we start putting airplanes in those hangars?
Probably the very next day.
really?
Tammy's been very proactive with communication to the tenants that are on the list and the current tenants.
Mhm.
And as soon as we get the green light, there will be someone moving their airplane in that day.
So sometime in February,
Yes,
okay, we'll have occupancy
yes, and
Awesome.
revenue,
and
which
revenue.
which is the big one.
Good. All right.
One question. I know that there's been a lot of activity reference federal monies that are appropriated for airport infrastructure. And are we watching out for that, and how we might benefit from it?
Yeah, in late December or early January, I attended a webinar that the FAA put on for the BIL, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which includes tremendous level of funding for airports, to include municipal airports like ours. We are in the tier where we will be able to apply for up to $259,000, possibly this year. That still remains, we're still working with the consultants, and we're still looking. It's not clear how or when that will come to fruition, but the money's been put aside. And we have earmarked for our airport $259,000. There's some rules on how we can and can't spend it, and there is a local share requirement. So when we do the budget this year, we have to program 20%, so about $51,000, $52,000 of local share to qualify for the 259.
Okay. One thing I didn't see on the list there was the admin building.
I think we talk about Baker coming up, Tammy.
Baker, yes.
Baker is coming up.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
When
in the
when we
agenda.
get to Baker, we can talk about that.
About the admin building, the
Yes.
new admin building?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right.
Okay. Item 5E, paid parking area.
Yes.
Is it paying yet, or?
No. So I've come across this. I've tried very different ways of solving this, and I'm open, as always, to your guys' input. Currently, we don't have enough resources with all the public parking in New Smyrna Beach to add another parking lot, to add the airport parking lot. And so at this moment in time, we don't have enough resources to do that. I looked at doing private parking contractors. I found a couple, but it wasn't going to be cost effective for them to drive from Daytona. There was no other parking spots that they were monitoring nearby that could justify them monitoring our parking spot daily, which is kind of the goal. I looked for an automatic system, spoke to a couple companies. They can come out and they can install gate arms. So you punch the button, you get the ticket, it lets you in. Whenever you leave, 1 day, 5 days, 7 days, whenever later, you exit with the ticket, they charge your credit card. That's the way that a lot of larger airports handle it, and there's enough capacity where in the future we could implement that system not only for the parking lot that we have, but for additional stalls nearby. But it's about $40,000. So when we did our return on investment for the parking lot initially, I think the revenue was estimated at about $14,000 a year. So it'll take several years for us to get, the money back. But it would be a way for that project in that area to start being accountable and for people to park, start paying when they park. It would also require where the adjacent grass parking is, that's airport property, that we would start to cordon that off with, chains and flower boxes or something to make it less available for parking so that you would kind of have to use the paved parking area.
Yeah, every time I go by, it looks like it's about a third full to the max.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it would be hard to do. There's no thought in mind about enlarging that at all, or, and before you chain off the grassy area to provide more of that parking? I don't know the plan. I don't know what it was originally envisioned to be.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an investment because on the south side so on the north side of the parking lot, you have Skyline Drive.
Yep.
And then on the south side, you have a drainage swale.
Yeah.
So for you to go in, I don't know if you'd have to do piping or how you would shape it, but they basically have to restructure the drainage, and then you could increase it to 40 stalls. But right now, we haven't proved that what we have is profitable yet. So I'm a little leery to go down there. I think the first thing would be to find a practical way to enforce it, because I think it's a fair rate. I think we're asking 15 daily and 10 long term, which is very fair for this area for parking. So I don't think it's an issue, with the volume of cars or our parking rate. It's simply a matter of enforcement. And to do it practically, you need the right system. You got to go out there and run the license plates, come back the next day, run the license plates with the computer system, or you have to have some sort of gate arm.
Okay.
Okay.
Is this aimed at charging the Airgate passengers or somebody else? Or definitely wouldn't be the Epic students, but who's your target customer?
The target would just be anyone from the general public that wanted a well-lit, dry, paved parking lot. So could be customers for the restaurant next door, could be Airgate, could be Epic students, could be contractors that are visiting the airport, could be anybody. It's just a public access paid parking.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
Not on that.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. 6A, 333 South Street property acquisition. George would be rolling over in his grave right now
Why do you say that?
because he'd never sell to the city, but it's a wise idea.
Okay. So pretty much the last week Rhonda was here, we were approached to see if we were interested in purchasing the property. So this is much of the relationship building and much of the history of this is Rhonda's work. I've really just come in at the last hour and tried to put together the deal as best that I understand it, and with the help of the DOT and the consultants in the city, we're working through it. We were able to get a pilot project or a starter grant from the DOT for about $100,000. That enabled us to hire the right consultants to get the right kind of environmental and appraisals and all these different processes that are required as pre-purchase activities for a property this size. We've done some preliminary walkthroughs of the building with fire marshal, building department, just to have a better understanding of the property. Certainly is an asset to the airport. And we are meeting and working with both the current tenant, Curtis, and the owner, John Baker. And we're hopeful to have most of the pre-purchase activities completed by March or April, at which point everyone will kind of understand the appraised value of the property and negotiations will start. And then we will seek an amended grant from the DOT for the full purchase price of the property. So it's sounds kind of simple when you describe it like that, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on the?
No, the backup that was provided in this agenda was awesome on
Good.
that. All the letters and everything, and so that was good. That was a nice presentation there.
I knew that it was something you guys maybe didn't have on your radar yet at the last meeting.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to be thorough so you can kind of get caught up to speed.
Just one question. It says Florida Department of Transportation participation is estimated at 2.24, with the airport fund at 560,000. Is that money in the fund? Is that money available? Okay.
So that's where the admin building comes into play.
Say again?
That's where the admin building, the question you had before about the admin building.
Yes.
When we went out to bid for the admin building, the estimated completion price was about $1.3 million. When the bids came in, because of the uncertainty of construction labor and materials and things during COVID, the lowest qualified bid was right around $2 million.
Wow.
Okay.
So it was not the ideal time to pursue the admin building, given those conditions. I don't believe that the building was worth $700,000 more just because it was built this year versus next year or something like that.
Yeah.
So we had the option to roll some of the funds that were earmarked for that building this year into this property.
Okay.
So we made the decision to do that. It was supported by our finance department, by the commission. And if we're successful with this property, we'll be able to recoup with the revenue that this tenant, the commercial tenant, will produce for us. We'll be able to recoup some of our funds and we'll be able to examine the admin building again in the next few years.
Okay.
Now, do they have room for the admin building, or are you going to have to do the parking lot trade with Lost Lagoon since their front parking lot is airport property?
Right. I was in a meeting earlier today just before this, and there's a different way that they're looking to utilize that property. We selected a successful second location where there was no conflict with property lines, oak trees, anything like that. And it's immediately east of Building D, the T hangars, in that green space prior to US 1. So right by Gate 1 there. That's a suitable site. It has enough drainage, it has enough space. You still have the flow of traffic. We still maintain emergency fire response lane. It met all the criteria. So the secondary site for the airport admin building is how the design was completed. And in a couple years, when we have the funding and the local match for the building, we'll pull those designs off the shelf. It'll take a little bit of money to tweak them and get them up to the current codes, and then we'll go through the bidding process. But that building is set up to occur on that site.
Okay.
And we can follow up this meeting with the backup site, just so you guys will have the graphics.
Okay.
The only thing I saw reading through this, and it probably irrelevant because of the way you wrote it, Baker brought that property about over 40 years ago. So 40 is over 30, but
Yes.
it jumped out at me.
Yeah, I knew it was going back a ways, but I didn't have the exact details.
I believe it was in the early 80s, because
Yes.
he owned it in 82 when I met him.
Okay, 82. The consultants that we're working with, one of their responsibilities is going back through all the times that the property was handled. And so we'll know that information a lot better once we become owners of it again. There's a lot more documentation standard now than there was 40 years ago.
So is in that process of reviewing that property for the purchase, is there something in there that's going to look at the possibility of ground contamination from chemicals and solvents and stuff like that? I mean, it's an aircraft maintenance facility. That kind of stuff
Yes.
was either handled correctly or it wasn't. Okay, so.
Yes. So we had contractors on site earlier this week doing a level 1 environmental assessment. And then based on their observations and their wisdom and knowledge of their trade, they'll provide us with recommendations if there's somewhere further to go or if they have no concerns. But certainly part of the due diligence and the pre-purchase activity is environmental.
Anybody have any other questions on 6A? I don't understand 6B, property lease, motion to support is for the Baker property, or?
So this one is somewhat new as well, since we haven't had the opportunity to meet for several months. This has to do with the 7 acres of property on the south of the airport where the previous police training and fire training was. We've had a lot of commercial interest in developing at the hangar, and we were looking for, when I say we, Chris Edwards, our economic development director, has been tremendous equal partner or more in this endeavor. He and I were looking at this property and trying to determine what the best way to get a qualified person in for a lease. And one of the ways that we can do this is through this request for a proposal. It's kind of like a vehicle that we can use to advertise it, to entertain people's ideas for how they would invest there, and then in a public manner to rack and stack the different investments and then pick award one in terms of what we think is the right fit for the airport. So much of this has been tailored for jet aircraft. One of the airport's critical design aircraft is like a citation size business jet, a King Air, Beechcraft 1900, somewhere in that category. And in order for us to demonstrate regular use, we need about 500 operations a year. We currently have about 250 to 300 operations per year. So in order for us to long-term, in order for us to maintain the facilities that we have, we need to demonstrate regular use of them with the airport critical design aircraft. So one of the opportunities that we have to get more jet traffic at the field is to encourage commercial hangar development. So we're looking at 100 by 100, 80-foot door, kind of similar to like, the hangars that you guys have. And we're looking for someone that's going to come in and, have a certain amount of staff on hand. So it's creating a certain amount of jobs, increasing our operational activities, contributing to jet fuel sales. So there's a lot of positive outcomes. We just have to go through the process to make sure that the property is known for its size, which is why we did the surveying, and then the value of the property is known, which is why we've done the appraisal. I ultimately, once the city staff feel that this product is ready to go out to the public in detail, it'll go in front of the commission, and then if the commission approves it, it'll get posted. So from the airport advisory perspective, we're interested in, currently this grass is making us no money and we're paying guys and equipment costs to cut it. So it'd be tremendous to add some revenue producing commercial leases here. I think everyone's in agreement with that. I'm personally looking for the jet demographic because maintaining that helps us keep the facility at the standard that we are and not get any smaller because we're demonstrating regular use of this aircraft. Critical design is, jet traffic. But I'm open to your thoughts on it, and if you guys can support it, we want to move forward to the commission in the next month or so as it comes together.
Okay.
So would these be city-built buildings, or somebody else come in and build it
Yeah, at
and
this
lease it with a buyback?
Yeah, so at this point in time, what we're considering is it would be a private investor, probably a term of 30 years. And at the end of the 30 years, depending on how it was negotiated, the land and possibly the buildings, the improvements would revert back to the airport. We don't have the funds currently to drop in, some commercial hangars ourselves. But there are certainly people who have expressed interest in developing at the airport, and this is a good vehicle for them to be able to work with the city and the airport.
As in what type of people are showing interest?
A variety of people.
Oh, my God.
So you're talking about these 7 lots,
Yes.
right? Being leased to individuals to build hangars for larger aircraft.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the principal goal.
Because this whole package goes all over, and at the end of it, it's got a list of possible businesses that could be there.
Well, this is just the appraisal packet. The
Yeah.
actual request for proposal is its own document.
Right.
This is just one section of it.
Okay?
But because that document is still in the work,
Okay.
I didn't want to share it, but this will at least give you an idea of the property, the proximity, all those kinds of things.
Well, that was what I was trying to do, was understand the intent
Yes.
of these 7 lots.
Yeah.
Even though there's this long thing from Concanon about the appraisal,
Right.
what is the airport's intent
Yeah.
for these 7 lots? And it's hangar facilities for larger airplanes,
Yes.
stuff that won't fit in the T hangars.
Yes.
Okay.
And stuff that meets the aircraft design group for the airport. It's important that we keep our demographic of based aircraft appropriate to the size of the facility, because it's hard to ask for funding to justify a big facility when you don't have any aircraft that size based there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the reason I asked my question that you so skillfully dodged was we had Shelt Air come in years ago wanting to build, and the city turned them down. So it's just.
Yeah, we're open to anyone that will meet the minimum criteria for the RFP.
Meaning we, as in the airport manager's office, or the city commission and city staff?
At this point, because nothing else is approved, I would speak for myself. I would let Chris, I guess, make his own statement on that, but that's our intent. Our intent is to entertain any reasonable offer that meets the criteria, and then from then, there's a committee and a process that, decides who actually gets to proceed.
Okay. Well, would somebody like to?
I got one more comment.
Yes.
When this property was discussed before, however many years ago, the word of Menorcan artifacts crept into the conversation,
Yes.
and that will arise again, I'm sure.
Yes.
And to have a roadway on the west side of these proposed vehicle or buildings that was going to encroach upon the sacred grounds of our predecessors.
Wow.
So
Yes.
I'm sure it'll come up again.
Yes. Yeah, the goal is, Chris and I's goal is to try to be as transparent with all the facets of the property as possible. So In the surveying, we've asked the surveyor to survey within the context of enough room for the hangar that we desire, some parking on the back, the road itself, but not going so far as to be in the historic Menorcan ditch area. And then we have some cultural studies, we have some advisors, some people that will come through and they'll look, this is much further down the road, but during the construction activities, they would be there, I guess, supervising as part of that as well. So they will be aware that this is here when they're proceeding with this.
Can you go back to that picture, Tammy, with the red box on it? So where is that historical district or area that we're talking about here?
It's just that row of trees right at the west side of the red box.
Okay.
And in and around that area, there may be, I guess, what they call middens, like these shell dugouts.
Yeah.
There's different evidences that there were people there. And there's different rules. And depending on the density of what they find, they do some digging and then they screen the dirt. And depending on what they find, they assign different values to the land. And some of it's cleared or some of it has artifacts. And then they inform us as to, the proper way to proceed. And that's kind of a standard practice in the projects that I've seen at the airport is to hire, you do like a go for tortoise survey, you do the historical and cultural surveys just to inform yourself as to the land that's there.
So is your target or optimum outcome of this that these 7 lots are either individually leased to owners that would build hangars for larger aircraft, or is there any thought in there about somebody else coming in and building on several of them and creating some type of business enterprise in there?
So something that Chris and I have spoke about is keeping it somewhat open. So one of the things we've agreed would be a desirable fit would be to build from the south towards the north in phases, because you already have the road and the utilities and everything in that south corner. So that would be the logical place to put your first building and to kind of proceed from there. So it may be that a group of individuals applies and their idea is voted the best and we work with them, or it might be that one individual with a vision for all 7 acres comes in and that's considered the best, and then the city elects to work with them. This is this is the ground floor. Once we have the product, then we see who's interested in it, and then once we get the responses, it goes up the chain from there. So this will be decided above my position or Chris's position. It's a team thing.
Okay. But you are still looking at some permanent parking on the southwest corner of that taxiway area that's to the west of the T hangars?
When you say permanent parking?
Where the last time I was out there with you and we were riding
Right.
around, there was a couple of aircraft that were tied down.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
So the intent is still to put some tie downs there?
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of an interim project. We've actually got the T's marked off and everything already.
Okay.
But that's further north. That's north on Echo, kind of where you can see the bottom of the compass rose used to be.
Yeah.
It's more in that area.
But there were a couple airplanes parked there the last time.
There were, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
In practice, my understanding of this would be we would get this RFP product developed. It would get approved. It would get advertised. We would receive the interested person's packages. They would get screened and, racked and stacked. So this is, a multi-year process. This
Okay.
is nothing that's going to happen, very quickly. Lots of time for user input.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to support the RFP process commitment to the Airport Advisory Board.
Also move.
Second?
Second.
Chair Dempsey,
Yes.
Member Norval,
Yes?
Member Mitchell,
Not as it's written, no.
and Member Starley.
Yes.
Okay, item 6C, 2022 revised RSAT.
Yes, we were scheduled to have the RSAT coming up next week. However, there was concern for an in-person meeting, so we've postponed it till May. At this point in time, the RSAT will primarily consist of previous concerns that have been brought forward and the efforts that we've made to mitigate them, like we've talked about here today. And then also potentially, if there were any new safety action items that would come forward, they would be brought forward and then documented at the next meeting. And then we would start the process all over again of how do we mitigate them? How do we fund it? How do we fix it? Just wanted to make you guys aware of it and to allow you to be a part of it if you desire.
Where was the last in-person meeting held?
I don't believe that we've had an in-person meeting since I've been here. I got here in March and COVID hit the day later, and
Yeah.
so,
The last one I was in was a virtual meeting.
yes.
Okay, all right. And that was the last one, right?
Yes, last year's. Yeah, it would have either been 2020 or 2021, because I think you were on our board in 2021. So we've probably done 2 virtuals, and this was going to be the first in person. There's a lot of challenges with virtual meetings. It's difficult to,
Where, the meeting that was scheduled for 2/8, where was that going to be held?
in this building,
In this building?
right here, yeah. We were
Okay.
gonna hold it in this forum, in this building. We had booked this room, but some of the agencies that would be in attendance, it was violating their travel protocols and everything, so,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Because I guess the invite for the last one went out several weeks ahead, and I hadn't seen an invite for this one. Okay.
Yeah, the,
Just wanted to make sure that we all get an opportunity to get an invite so that we can work our schedules to
Right.
be a part of that.
yeah. We are not the biggest entity at the meeting, and so when, when the other members, are not there, we just don't hold it.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, item 6D, upcoming capital improvement projects.
So there's quite a bit here. We've talked a little bit about some of them. Taxiway Alpha is the next major rehabilitation and redesign. We just had our FDOT statewide pavement condition index inspection on Monday and Tuesday of this week. The report for the pavement condition will be coming out. Charlie and Alpha are currently low-scoring pavement condition taxiways. Charlie is being rehabilitated right now in this project, so it will be restored to a green or 100% score. But Alpha will be the next challenged pavement. In the process of updating and rehabilitating the pavement, we're also going to take the opportunity to revise and upgrade the lighting along that taxiway. And because of the proximity of that taxiway to the placement, we're going to also update and add the wind cone that we had talked about as part of the RSAT. So it's a nice way to dovetail those 2 concerns into one project. The pre-application was submitted to the FAA. We have not received the full grant application yet. That will probably be coming out in the next couple of months. We have earmarked the funds for it, so if we get it and the commission approves it, we'll be able to proceed. T-Hangar F Rehabilitation and improvement, we've selected the consultants. We've got some basic ideas of what we want to do and how we want to rehabilitate that hangar. We've submitted a pre-application for that as well, and we have some funds earmarked in the budget to cover the local share if that grant is approved. The fuel farm is probably the nearest and dearest. They're all important, but the fuel farm, we have a daily reminder of. We have a saying in the airport office, fuel farm first. It's the first thing we look at. It's always on our mind because our consumption rate is almost perfect with how many days it takes to order the next truck. And so if you're wrong, you will run dry. The goal is to add more capacity so that we can have 2 trucks worth of fuel on the farm and we can sell at a high volume, but we always have a cushion. There's also been some changes to the National Fire Code, which require that the fuel farm and the truck talk to each other so that if one overflows or one has an issue, they both shut down. That's going to be something that we're looking for. And then just an overall better utilization of the space. Longer hoses on the reels so we can accommodate larger aircraft if they desire to self-serve, those type of things. It's about $200,000 to $250,000 project. We have the local share set aside if the grant's approved. The pre-application's been submitted. So these are kind of the 3 hopefuls that we have for this upcoming year. I'd like to see Alpha Design get approved. I'd like to see T-Hanger rehabilitation get approved, and we'd like to see the fuel farm. You know, you always ask for them, and you kind of get what they're able to help you out with.
Okay. Item 7, airport manager comments.
Yeah, this one I just wanted to touch base with you guys on some of the kind of principal expenses, some of the ways that we're spending our time and our money. We have 12 light poles on the main apron. They each have 2 lights on them, so we have a total of 24 lights. Those lights have been up there long enough to get corroded to the point where we cannot safely replace the ballast, the bulb, the hardware. So we've been doing some research and looking at things, and moving to an LED component not only saves a little bit of electricity, but it also is a lower maintenance, but they're very expensive. So I'm looking at replacing the west side, which is 7, total of 14 fixtures with the LED style floodlights. And that will help make sure that the main apron is evenly lit and with a quality of light sufficient for, you know, the operations on the apron. Our air traffic control tower, we've had constant issues with the air conditioning system. It's one of a few towers that only had one AC system. It's common for the tower to have 2 air conditioners. If you lose one, the other one keeps you going. Both removing the humidity to protect all the equipment that's in the tower, and 2, keeping the temperatures down for the staff. That cab at the top of the tower is kind of like a greenhouse. The temperature can go up 10 to 15 degrees in an hour when the AC cuts out. You're just in a glass box up there, and gets hot very quickly. So I've been pushing to get a secondary air conditioning system. One, it will eliminate some of the fatigue that the single system has running all the time. It kicks off, it kicks right back on. 2, if we lose one of the 2 systems, it buys us some time. Right now, whenever the air conditioning fails in the tower, it's an emergency call out. It's $300 just for them to show up. We just can't afford to wait 2 days, 3 days, whatever it takes. And it typically fails in July when everyone else's fails, and so air conditioning technicians are hard to get, parts are hard to get. So I'd like to add that redundancy with the second system. We've gotten quotes, we've got the money set aside for it, and it's the right thing to do for the tower. In a similar manner, we're going to be spending about $5,000 to replace the 3 VHF antennas for the field. So the airfield radio station, the ATIS, are local. The tower frequency and the ground frequency, they're all using antennas that have met or exceeded their service life. So those are going to be replaced. The airport security fence, we're adding an additional manual vehicle gate on the north side, like it says. It's going to be gate 20, and it's been reviewed and supported by our fire chief. It's going to enhance some of our emergency response capability. And
That's
then,
where all the equipment is coming in and out now that's using the,
Yes.
that's doing the
Yeah.
taxiway work.
yeah, so the contractor was going to put it back to just being a square piece of fence with
Yeah.
no gate. But they've already put the stabilized road in, and they've already got the gate in. So I asked if it can be left, not only for the project, but just left for the airport. And then it's just a matter of updating the security plan and informing the emergency response and letting them know. I think it's a worthwhile trade. I mean, I just think having an additional access outweighs the concerns of the additional access.
Well, we paid for it anyway when we paid them to do the work.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of the approach that I was looking at. And then you and I were talking about just a minute ago, the 5 tie downs in the south area. So that's the other thing is I'm trying to create a space where the T-hangers, when they have guests in town, or when, you know, someone's buying an aircraft but they haven't yet sold their aircraft and there's 2 aircrafts in the T-hanger, instead of parking outside and congesting the lanes between the T-hangers, they'll have an area where they can park and tie up safely. And
How'd you come up with 5? Just,
I was just kind of looking at how many aircraft are there's typically 1 or 2 always kind of extra airplanes. And then I thought, you know, once there's 1 or 2 tie downs, more people might be encouraged. I just went with 5. We could go with more or less depending on.
so are those north of the T hangers or south of the?
They're slightly northwest of the T hangers.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And while we had the paint crew there, I asked them to lay out 5 Ts at the appropriate spaces, just like they are on the apron. And then the next thing we're going to do is pursue just a small contract to get the holes drilled and get the tie downs sunk in the pavement.
Yeah.
And then we'll be able to. We already have a short-term land leased instrument that we can use for aircraft parking. So we're just going to adopt it for those 5 spaces. And we're going to charge a couple dollars more a day than the FBO. That way we're not competing with their business. We're not taking their business away. So I think it's a good way to solve the problem.
I was wondering, given the size of the backlog for hangar occupancy and the
Yeah.
T hangars, if that's kind of a pre-step to getting a T hanger position is getting one of these tie down spots out there. And is there an opportunity to make a little revenue by doing more of those than just 5?
Right. That's a very good, very fair point. My concern is that we already have businesses on the field that we want to support with aircraft tying down.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to compete with them. The idea is not to compete for revenue. It's just to give the T-hanger tenants a safe way to entertain another aircraft that's visiting for the weekend or did a fly-in. It's just to create a little pocket for them so that they can safely tie down. We certainly could look at a model where we could store 20 or 30 aircraft down there. We have the space. I just didn't want to compete with the businesses on the field.
Okay. All right. That makes sense too. I just was wondering.
Anybody have any questions?
No. Do we have a chance for questions in the?
Yeah.
What happened to the annual report?
Pardon?
The annual report.
For the airport itself?
Yeah.
I don't know that I've done one since I've been here.
No, I'm talking about the one that we created all of the input for. The AAB report
Oh,
to
I
the
see.
city,
Okay.
the city commission or the mayor.
Yes, we were behind schedule, and unfortunately, I went out with COVID. So we had already missed the deadline, and then we really missed the deadline when I went out with COVID. So as soon as that comes back around again, we will revisit that.
So the 21 report's going to be delivered in, what, June of 22 for the 22? Do we need to update it? I'm just trying to be,
When it comes back around, we will update it. I'll give you guys the 2022 forms, if they redo that this year.
because it was supposed to be a June submittal, wasn't it, in 21?
Yes.
I thought.
And it was in July when we were discussing it, and then Rhonda retired, I went out with COVID, it was,
Okay. And we had a number of the board members that were impacted with other things too.
yeah, so it
Okay.
was just a domino effect, and we missed our deadline. So
Okay.
ours did not get inputted.
Okay, well,
Yeah, had we have met in September, which I think was the next time,
okay.
because I think we met in June and then
Well,
we missed
what-
a meeting and yes.
Whenever the next one is supposed to be, is that what we're gonna target for? Is the next normal submittal, or are we gonna still try and do something for 21, or what's our plan?
I can talk to Kelly, but as far as I knew, they'd already wrapped up the 21. So I'll confirm with her and give you an update at that next meeting.
Okay, all right, but I'd just like to get a timeline put together for development of that, that's not that kind of jammed up thing we had last time.
I agree.
And we have time for the board members to contribute, you guys to consolidate it into a single document, and then us do maybe a workshop where we review it or something like
Yes.
that, and do it
Yeah.
like we should.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Item 8, Airport Advisory Board member comments. Go ahead, Mr. Starley. Have anything?
No, sir, thank you.
Well, what you should do maybe is just introduce yourself a little bit to everybody.
Yeah,
I
I should
don't
have done
know
that
if
in the
any-
beginning.
if-
Sorry about that.
If anybody, I had a chance to talk with Jim a little bit before the meeting, but he's got a great background, and it would be good to hear for the board members to know a little bit about you.
Well, I've been hanging around airports for a long time, starting off as a line boy in Torrance, California. I guess 65 or so years ago. I went from there to flight instructing and charter pilot while I was in college, and at 23 went to work for Braniff International Airways, and found myself flying DCH down to South America. After Braniff failed, I got in some of the initial startup activities of People Express, which merged with Continental, which merged with United, and then my swan song is I went down to Panama and ran flight operations for Copa Airlines. So I've been an airline guy for 45 years of my flying career. Have progressed from line boy to vice president during the course of that, and I'm rated in the DC-3 and A300 and 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and proudly own a Cessna 195.
Good for you.
How many years did you fly for Braniff?
9.
Oh, none?
Yeah, 9 years. 9 years.
9?
with Brent.
You didn't know Eric Paul, did you?
Yes, yeah.
Huh, okay. He's a good friend of mine. Jim, you got any comments?
Well, first off, thank you for the recommendation for the chair. This gentleman here has done an awesome job for this board in the many years that he's held the chair position, and I'm going to count on him being here all the time to help me, okay, transition into that. So thank you for that. I have had some opportunities after my shoulder surgery, which knocked me out for a little while back in the late October and November timeframe, December even. But I've now been re-engaging with Adam and going over to the airport. Try and take regular tours in the truck around the airport activity over there to keep up to speed on what's going on. And I can say Adam's been was the one-armed paper hanger for quite a while, and now he's got help. So God bless you. we're glad that you're part of the team now too, because after all the issues with Rhonda and her health and then retiring and these poor folks have just been going crazy over there. But if you look out there, all the time, there's all kinds of activity going on. I mean, we got all kinds of construction equipment out there. We're fixing stuff that were raised during the last RSAT as a concern, okay, with the pilot confusion that can result with landing and trying to figure out where they are and how they get to where they want to go. So there's good stuff happening, even though we've been in some really tough times with pandemic and short staff and everything else. These folks at the airport have continued to do a really good job, and we appreciate everything you guys are doing over there. Okay.
Okay. I have nothing. Jeff?
Just a question for Adam or Arvind. There's some surveyors on our ramp
Oh, yeah, I did have something to ask you.
marking their spots. Any background on that?
That was the FDOT statewide pavement inspection on Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that was most likely communicated in an email that might not have got read. I'll try to get another email for you guys if you weren't aware of it at the time. I apologize.
Okay,
But they looked at the whole airport, top to bottom, left to right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'll get one more then.
Yes.
The grassy area that you're talking about paving for jet parking, how do you come up with the ACN, PCN numbers for the aircraft that you're anticipating parking there as far as pavement loads and that kind of thing?
Well, it's mainly the work that was done by the consultants in 2019 for the master plan update.
Okay.
So the FAA has a TAF, a terminal area forecast, that helps us decide if operations are going to increase or decrease, and then we look at some of the demographics. Currently, with a 3-wheel configuration, the runways are rated for max 59,000 pounds, and we're an aircraft design group 2 airport, so wingspans of 79 feet or less is typical operations. We do get larger aircraft there, but we don't design all of our facility to accommodate those. So if we get a larger than 79-foot wingspan, such as the C-54 that was here, the fuel farm, the apron, a lot of those structures are not designed for an aircraft that large, but they can land and use like 2-0. They'll use the runway instead of a taxiway or something to move around. So when it comes with designing that apron, those are the constraints that we're operating in. What does the master plan recommend for 5 to 10 years out? The type of aircraft, the frequency of use, size, weight. That's what the consulting engineer for that project will incorporate into the design.
My only other last question is, where does the airport master plan reside? Is that an electronic document? Is it in the airport office? Or if I want to read or look at it,
Yes.
or just come see it and
Yeah.
try and figure it out or ask questions,
Yes.
I would come to the office.
Yeah, so we have a paper copy that's to the left of my desk at all times. It's great reading material. But, and then we have a, and then we have a full sheet airport layout set as well. So we have like 17 pages of all the different runway approaches, land utilization.
I didn't know if it was something that was a city archive and I could
So
get there
there is-
electronically and look at it
yes.
on my computer at home or what,
Yes.
but I think I'd like to get,
Yes.
not that I want to read it or study it, but I just
Yeah.
kind of like to look at it.
Yeah, of course.
I'd like to have the benefit of flipping through it and kind of
Yes.
getting a gist for what the master plan is.
Yeah, so through the city clerk, you can ask for a digital copy, and it's usually put on a thumb drive because it's a large document, it's hard to mail, several hundred pages, plus full-scale, full rendered drawings. But that's probably the best way to do it if you want to view it at your leisure. You're certainly welcome to stop by the office, and we can kind of walk through it together if you'd like to familiarize yourself with it that
Yeah.
way first.
Yeah, I'd probably do that. I'll get in touch
Yeah.
with you and figure out a time just to come do that.
Yep.
Okay, item 9. Next meeting date will be Thursday, April 28th, 2022 at 2 PM, I assume in these chambers.
Correct.
And item 10, somebody make a motion to adjourn.
Wait a second. Last year, Tammy, you gave us, we got a copy of the 21, oh, you got those, okay. Very good.
I have one for you.
All right, thank you.
Do you guys want one?
It's just, so it helps with the calendar to be able to know what
Yes.
it is beyond April and for the
Yes.
rest of the year
Yeah.
for our planning, okay? So,
Thank you.
all right.
All right, I'm gonna try one more time. Item number 10, somebody make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
All right.
No, wait. Last time, Tammy.